where we increasingly see competition and where our claim to leadership is challenged every day. The digital decade and the associated Digital Euro program are, of course, in essence, policies and funding for trade and industry in Europe. I think we completely understand that, but it has a very concrete spillover effect on the dynamics around funding for research, development, and innovation in Europe, traditionally funded through Horizon Europe, traditionally an environment we feel safe in. Like e-IRG, GEANT and the NREN community have a track record of more than 20 years of funding through framework program for research and technology development to support and foster research in the European research area. But what we see now, and particularly in the advent of the digital decade, is the growing fact that areas of our natural interest are funded outside Horizon Europe. Here are GEANT's big five. Those are the big five animals we need to pursue mapped against our horizontal activities. And let's look at the savanna that they live in today. Let's look at the funding environment. Take EuroHPC. EuroHPC is mainly funded through the Connecting Europe facility. Take the data spaces or quantum, which are mainly funded in the Digital Europe program. While in the area of trust and of identity, the development of services is still being funded through Horizon Europe, in the future, the delivery of such services will be funded in the Digital Europe program. The digital wallet is a key example here. As providers of trusted services, such as EduRoam for the student community across Europe and globally, we as GEANT have to make sure that our GEANT AI trust and identity platform keeps in sync with the wallet activities that are driven in the public administration and industry. We are a key not-for-profit player in this environment and have to have our feet under the table, even though the Digital Euro program has never been aimed at us. Or take our international activities. GEANT is interconnected to similar research and education networks across the entire globe, reaching a total of 120 countries. International activities are funded in various environments, and they're very confusing. We have the Neighborhood Development International Cooperation Instrument, or the Instrument for Pre-Accession. But all of this coming together in the context of Global Europe, Team Europe, and the Global Gateway Policy. So we see a fragmentation of funding for those activities, which we have identified as priorities for GEANT and our national partners, the NRENs. In addition, we have the horizontal complexity of eligibility and compliance rules, which have, of course, always existed, but which have come more sharply defined in the wake of the war in Ukraine. The so-called security clause can be evoked in all funding instruments with immediate and limiting effects. And we suddenly may have to deal with the challenge of EU27 versus what we call GEANT 43, which is the number of GEANT member countries we have in Europe. While almost all European countries have association agreements with Horizon Europe, only 3 countries in addition to the EU27 are associated to the CEF program. And last I checked, only 1 country was associated to the Digital Europe program. For a community like ours, and talking here about values, which has been built and expanded over the last 30 years based on the premise and promise of trust, inclusion, and consensus, these criteria, as a consequence of the geopolitical crisis around us, are challenging our core values. 20 and even 30 years ago, digital was connectivity. Connectivity was what mattered and what was needed. Connectivity was the answer to digital inclusion, and a reduction of connectivity pricing was a reduction of the digital divide. In 1999, the then 10155 network, and that map I did myself, covered a subset of countries that we cover today. And really, that STM1 here, that 155 megabit link, was something very, very rare. Now a map that I didn't do myself. Today, the GEANT network has a greater geographic reach and offers terabit connectivity across Europe. Thanks to generous funding to the GN43N project from the European Union and the continued national investments into NREN infrastructure, we don't even need to try to be modest when we say that GEANT and NRENs deliver the best network and services to the European research and education community. Take our access and trust and identity services to the European research and education community. EduRoam is also 20 now. The pilot was launched in 2003 in Croatia, Finland, Germany, the Netherlands, Portugal, and the United Kingdom. In 2022, we had 6.4 billion authentications across the 106 federations globally, a resounding success. And it shows how far e-infrastructures have come in the last 20 years. And then there's our global reach. In the last 20 years, we went from connectivity to the US and Japan to connecting NRENs and regional partners in over 110 countries. Connectivity as well as seamless and interoperable services ensure that scientists and educators around the globe increasingly have the same user experience. Just 2 weeks ago, we celebrated our yearly event, the TNC conference in Albania. We had there also an afternoon with what we call the CEO track. We had the pleasure of meeting with well over 50 CEOs from NRENs representing all continents. It just goes to show the NREN model is a global success story supporting science and education. So yes, in GEANT, we see that the challenges are ahead, and we know that as a community, we have to adapt and we need to get ready for the times after Horizon Europe. But we also know that we are building on the pillars that are very strong. We build on our values of community and trust. We build on our common purpose of delivering the best network and services to the research and education communities, helping to ensure Europe's future leadership in research and education. We build on our experience of working together as a growing and inclusive community for more than 20 years, and our knowledge based on this experience and the relationship of trust that we have formed. We have succeeded in the last 20 years. Here's to continued success for all of us in the next 20 years. Many thanks and happy birthday.
Thank you very much. And your EduRoam example is for me illustrative how awfully challenging it is when it does not work. So we are so used to this that people do not recognize that it was not there more than 20 years ago. So this is sometimes the fate of actual good working e-infrastructures. They're just there, they work. Okay, Tiziana, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Switching.
Apologies, Tiziana, for that we are running late. And I know you have your own conference, but
yes,
please go ahead.
I hope our infrastructure will hold because I'm connected from a hotel room. So in case you have an issue with the audio, let me know, wave to me from the room, I can see you, so that at least I can switch off the video. So I'd like also to join the thanks for being here and congratulations for the 20 years of e-IRG. Here in Poznan, we are having the EGI conference, our annual gathering, and we are also celebrating 20 years of operations. So there is definitely a lot of success and achievements in supporting science that we can be very proud of. And I believe this e-IRG workshop is an opportunity to look together the future and what are the future challenges that e-IRG and the infrastructures that can tackle together. So let me first share my screen. Hopefully I won't have the problems of Pierre. Can you see slides appearing?
It's appearing now only in presentation mode, and then yes, you're on. Thank you.
So with this 5-minute speech, I'd like to focus on the future, where as EGI community, we see opportunities and challenges in this complex ecosystem, which has been well summarized by Tobias in the presentation by the European Commission. First of all, what is the vision of the EGI community and what are the challenges we are still facing? The infrastructures have been achieving individually tremendous impact on science. We have been leveraging advancements in technologies, but we still see barriers, and quite often infrastructures are perceived as silos. So our vision for the coming 10 years is that the infrastructures can further develop, becoming an integrated and open fabric that at European level supports research infrastructures, research collaborations, projects, and also citizen science, so science at all levels, to provide the data and adding value services to our European scientific community. When we say fabric here, it's not just the physical infrastructure, the networking, the physical facilities, but the entire stack of services that is of a general purpose and applicable to many scientific domains. And this includes, for example, scholarly communication from OpenAir, the storage and data management solutions of EU data, and also HPC as an integral element complementing the data-intensive federation that EGI brings together. And the fabric only, of course, is possible if delivers the technical services, but the fabric is also a human fabric, meaning interconnected expert networks that jointly can support more effectively European scientific collaborations. So as EGI, our expectation and hope is that the infrastructures can join forces when we have common challenges and the common interest in supporting scientific communities. We see the Infrastructure Forum as an important evolution of the European landscape of the infrastructures, which will serve ideally as a contact point for research communities, for policymakers and funders, when common issues that concern infrastructures have to be tackled together. EGI is a member of the GaiaX and also participates in a number of data space implementation projects. Of course, the data space landscape is in great evolution, and it's in its infancy, I would say, at the moment. Also, GaiaX is achieving tremendous progress in setting up the foundation of the federation model. In this changing landscape, we see a lot of opportunity in joint programs for research and development. From an EGI perspective, there is a lot of interest in collaborating with data spaces and GaiaX on trust and identity management, which are common problems and elements where we have to achieve interoperability from day one. So the landscape is complex, but offers a lot of opportunity and coordination in Europe that, if properly used, can bring instruments to address the future challenges. e-IRG has a place in this landscape. The EGI vision of e-IRG is that it is an important, relevant advisory board that should support the infrastructures in tackling the challenges of the coming decade on all policy matters which are a common concern, also offering an integrated contact point towards member states. Already Catherine mentioned, for example, the crisis brought up by the conflict in Ukraine. We have major policy issues that all infrastructures have to face in the current days. It's not just the technical delivery, support, and research and innovation, but also having a joint response and alignment when global challenges needed to be addressed in a coordinated manner. And of course, EOSC is also a very important new element in the European landscape compared to 20 years ago. EGI sees EOSC as a framework for cross-infrastructure cooperation, where coordination with research and innovation actions, infrastructures, and research infrastructures can happen. EOSC has been, from our point of view, tremendously successful in bridging the existing gaps that we faced at least up to 5 years ago between infrastructures and research infrastructures on the S3 roadmap, and not only. And the series of EOSC projects have been quite instrumental to bridge these gaps, have coordination and coordinate the support and the research and innovation really quite instrumental also to bring a tangible impact to science. And I like with this concluding slide also to bring the very practical perspective that EGI has been dealing with. We have been running EGIAs as an implementation project of the EOSC compute platform. The project is coming to an end this month after 30 months of operations. And through this project, we have been experimenting collaboration with other infrastructures, but also with research infrastructures and the thematic service providers. EGI also brings research infrastructures in its own governance. They are members of our council, a number of these, and thanks to this EOSC engagement and projects, we have been able to serve in the recent years up to 26 different research infrastructures on the ESFRI roadmap, and today 64 research infrastructures, including also international collaborations, which are not a part of the ESFRI roadmap of today. EGIAs, but also EOSC Future and previous projects is where we have been working with the infrastructures, tackling in a coordinated manner joint problems. Of course, the European landscape is very complex, and we should not underestimate the complexity that we're facing. We were able, through the EGIA's project, to serve up to 77,000 different users and reach about 150 different research projects that were engaged through the EOSC initiative and EOSC projects. We believe that this success would not be possible without the EOSC initiative, and we believe the e-IRG, EOSC, and the infrastructures can together cooperate to set up a proper governance structure or collaboration structure, thanks also to the facilitation of the EOSC initiative. And with this, I've concluded my contribution. Thank you.
Anna, I hope you will be able to stay on for the rest of the session. If not, let us know. The next one, Per, you're up for EUDAT. Per.
No slides, but EUDAT, the collaborative data infrastructure, started as with 2 projects in 2009. And the address here to address the issue of research data and how to collaborate on research data. So the legal instantiation came in 2016 with the EUDAT collaborative data infrastructure, which is an agreement between a number of institutions in Europe then how to build a collaborative data infrastructure. And the legal entity was created, EUDAT Limited, which is established in Finland. And that is just to have a legal entity that coordinated. So in that sense, it is a bit different from the other research, also the other infrastructures here. That is really an agreement, this collaborative data infrastructure agreement that binds together. And that is a 10-year agreement. So it's up for renewal now in 2026. Here we are. So that is a very interesting period now to see what is the next step, what is the next phase, because we have been very much on the focus here on building collaborative data infrastructure services that are there for supporting researchers to share data, to publish data, and to be making research data visible to a larger community. So, and there is no direct country-based infrastructure here, but it's really a collaboration between organizations in Europe. So in that sense, it's a bit different, a bit more flexible, and some of the initial organizations have left and some new have come. So today it is an agreement between 24 organizations around Europe to deliver this collaborative data infrastructure. And the discussion is now, of course, have started. What will the next phase will be, the next 10-year agreement, or what we found is suitable here. And so this is a good time to take interest in the organization, because now it's a good opportunity to affect the future, or to influence the future, I would say. And in that sense, it is a good opportunity here. So we, with this collaborative data infrastructure, it has been very much focused on how to make research data, publish research data in an organized way for making it available for researchers outside of also the specific field where it originates from. So increase the sharing of research data through various services that we have built there. And of course, this is now addressed by for example, EOSC. And we welcome this very much. And this will also affect the future here of how we see how EUDAT will evolve. The tight collaboration with the other present infrastructures as with EUDAT and with EuroHPC. Because a difference from when we started to evolve EUDAT in 2009, formally with 2 initial EU projects, the landscape has changed in a big way. So today we have major initiatives that have the member states, the governments, and the EU behind very clearly. And that is the EuroHPC and EOSC. And that need to be taken into account, and we look very carefully into this now when we start to formulate what will be the next collaborative data infrastructure agreement among the EUDAT partners, and what will be the next kind of agreement to join for this purpose. Because the landscape have changed, and the landscape have changed to the better, I would say. We have, with these different initiatives that we have initiated and is presented here with EGI, EUDAT, PRAISE, and GEANT, what have a much longer history, have really now influenced the landscape of Europe and European data. And we now see with EuroHPC and EOSC that this has really now also get direct interest from our European governments and direct involvement of the European governments, which is necessary for a continued evolution here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And remains interesting. Meanwhile, Natalia, you are ready to pitch for open air?
Yes. Even though, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on my iPad and I'm trying to share my screen. Let me see if I can do that without crashing. So are you able to see my screen or not? Hello?
Yes.
I cannot hear you.
Oh dear, you cannot hear us?
You need to talk louder, a bit louder.
I don't think I have to talk louder. There's something on your side, I think.
Okay, perhaps, because can you see my PowerPoint or not?
No.
Okay, so then, probably, I will go without the PowerPoint. So greetings from, it's 3 o'clock here and I'm in Seattle in the US. So it's, I've stayed up to follow this very, very good and interesting session. Happy anniversary to the e-IRG, the 20th year. And thank you for taking this initiative to bring everyone together. Just, as I said, I'm not going to be pitching for open air. I'm just going to get some information about open air to give you the context, and then I will pass on our opinion on what would be the next steps. So OpenAIR is after following 2 or 3 projects, European projects, we became a legal entity in 2018. So we are 5 years young. And we have about 50 to 55 member organizations based on member states and associate countries, but also on other types of organizations. We just went this past year through a restructuring of our membership restructuring, and we will announce it in September. So we will become more inclusive to other organizations and institutions that they want to participate in OpenAIR. Just to give you an idea of the priorities of the 5 strategic priorities that we have, and everything, of course, is about an open scholarly communication system and open science. So our 5 priorities is, first of all, is to have infrastructure for open scholarly communications, not just about infrastructure, but it's also about open infrastructure. The second priorities are about data and service quality assurance. So how can we support the community in order to make sure that both data and services they provide around open science, they bring quality to the whole process. The third is about responsible research and career assessment. That includes open science, and this is very much related to the QARA initiative in Europe. 4 priorities: innovation and research, communication and dissemination. So it's not just about sharing publications or sharing data or software. So, but what are the novel ways of researchers sharing whatever they produce between them, among them, or with the broader community? And 5 is about monitoring of the uptake of open science policy. So as you can see, those 5 priorities are all about open science and are in the center. So what we see is that we see ourselves that we are an integral part of the European Open Science Cloud. And we are very, very happy that the European Open Science Cloud has brought open science in the center and also in the European research area. Our 3 modes of operations are services, training, and policies. So this is where, with the other infrastructure, I think, and the data spaces and EOSC and even EuroHPC, we can find common topics. So our view on the related policy topics that we would like to work with the rest of the community. First, of course, is the implementation of open science across the spectrum. What does it mean about across the spectrum? So scholarly communication is not a traditional scholarly communication. Is for us, communication is about exchanging ideas, exchanging data, exchanging software. It's about everything. So it's about how can we bring openness, and by openness, how can we bring transparency, which is very much related to AI in the talk that we heard in the previous session. And also it's about quality, because when we are opening up things, quality is #1 factor that researchers and institutions address. Then the second thing, so it's about implementation, and across the spectrum means is that now these policies have to do with access to data. They have to do with computing. They have to to cover the whole spectrum of research, the research life cycle. Then the next is about seamless access to everything that researchers are doing. So it's not just the products, but also access to the computing, access to the knowledge, access to everything in between. The next one is about skills about open science, skills about digital science. And what we have found is that our members are very much trained and experts on open science, but they don't have expertise in big science or computing or all of these things. And we see that the rest of the infrastructures, they are very much experts on these topics, but they may be lacking something about open science. So what we see is a touching point of skilling and upskilling our members. Then last but not least is what we hope is, it's related to policies, and it's related to what Catherine said. It's about sustainability and sustainable funding. So this is a hot topic for us because we struggle from project to project to project. So what Catherine said and what Ute said about, what is the next step after 2027 is very important for us as a touching point to discuss and have one uniform face. But also what is important is not just about sustainable funding, but it's also about the business models. No one is really touching upon these business models of how these services are being accessed or data is being shared. We know that the data spaces, for example, will have different business models, but the openness and the freeness of EOSC needs to have its own rules and business models. So this is very important. And then last but not least is in OpenAIRE, we're building, you may be aware of the OpenAIRE graph, which is the scholarly communication scientific knowledge graph, which encompasses everything. And we're trying to work with the research infrastructures in many ways, because we know that they are building their knowledge graphs, very detailed knowledge graphs, and we would like to work with everyone in order to have these knowledge graphs as an exchange, as a vehicles to exchange data, to discover data, to monitor research, science, innovation. So this is pretty much about what are our aspirations about this collaboration with the other infrastructures and with EOSC.
Thank you very much. Special thanks that you have sacrificed your night of sleep for this.
This is
if
my
you're able to
present. This is the birthday present to e-IRG.
Okay, then you are the last in this block, and thanks for your patience. We're really running late. Please go ahead on behalf of praise.
So let me share my screen. To share it. Am I allowed to share my screen? Do you hear me? I don't see. Possible to allow me to share my screen?
Leap to share your screen, says the support people here. So
doesn't look so. Doesn't look so.
Okay, if you can do it without slides, then for us it's also okay.
Yes, but for people,
Sent. Okay.
Okay, so sorry, it's really the first time I had this kind of issue. Well, okay, so I will do without it. Okay, so yeah, I will present the vision of price in the current AI ecosystem. So back in time, a couple of years ago, the ecosystem was much simpler, but was already quite complicated, with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of research infrastructure, and beyond all this infrastructure, there was and there is still a lot of communities. And if we are here all together, it's because of this research infrastructure are a very useful tool for these communities. And this is something very important in a continent like Europe, where we still have countries, and where we have also an overall decision to work together, sharing the same value and deciding to put a lot of things in common. And the research infrastructure are one of the most evident things that could be done when we are working together. So we are working together, but we are working also for the same community, and we are bringing different kind of services to them. So if I put the focus on the HPC community, we are now in the area of EuroHPC. So you know that the price was the S3 the HPC landmark, but now that EuroHPC is arriving, there is a lot of change in this ecosystem. So EuroHPC is now co-funding the HPC system in Europe. They are co-funding some petascale system, some pre-exascale system, and some exascale system. So the petascale system was what I would call the previous generation. The exascale system are the next generation, and the pre-exascale are the one in between. So the scale will be 1 billion floating point operation per second. What we have also is a quantum computing system that are arriving, and for that also EuroHPC is co-funding systems and projects. EuroHPC is also now allocating the HPC resources in Europe, so through a peer review process inspired by the old peer review process by PRESS, with a peer review tool dedicated to HPC resources allocation, and with the support of PRESS for this new process. And EuroHPC is also funding other projects related to the HPC ecosystem and its coordination. So what's left to PRESS in this new era? Well, PRESS is in the transition phase, and we are focusing on service to the European HPC ecosystem. PRESS is now building itself as a representative of the user community in a more bottom-up approach. So we have already a strong link with the community of our users, and also the community of all the HPC centers around Europe who are working together. And we are also working with all in an inclusive manner with all the other European HPC stakeholders. So let's say EuroHPC, of course, at the center, and the center of excellency, the competence centers, and the friends that speak before me. So EUDAT, NGI, GaiaX, OpenAir, and also other such as Phoenix. And also with other European research infrastructure, so such as the European Open Science Cloud, the Square Kilometre Observatory, the CERN, and other European and national initiatives. So we are also maintaining close relationship with actors beyond Europe, with international cooperation, such as for the summer schools that we organize with the other continent, Americas, Asia, and Africa. So in short, PREST will always be a team player, and we think that we stronger together. Now, what we are facing is how to build this collaboration, how to build this governance between so much infrastructure, and with a very different funding scheme. And for that, e-IRG is still very useful and will be still very useful in the future. So when we are dealing with the question of federation, of coordination, well, there is never one good solution and just a one size fits all. If we want to be efficient, we really need to work together and to find a way that is acceptable for the most of us. And this is something which is very difficult to organize in a top-down manner. The decision taken by such and such community, by such and such organization at a national scale, and by such and such research organization are all legitimate. And if we want to be able to have something efficient for our user, and we know that quite well in the HPC area, because on the HPC, we are always at the real cutting edge of the high performance technology, high performance computing technology. And so we have an history of working together with community to work on the acceptation of these technologies, because there is no point of having the strongest or the biggest computation system if the community are not able to use it, which means a lot of interaction with the stakeholder, lots of interaction on some security, some interoperability issue, but also a lot of things related to more simple things related to human being, such as communication and such as training, for instance.
Philippe, are you rounding off a bit? Yes.
Yeah, and
okay.
So that's my conclusion, and okay. So I wish you all an happy 20th anniversary, and hope to be with us in real life in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Now we have round off this block, and I think we must be honest, we will not reach any moderation session because I see you watching the clock and the buses will stop in an hour. So before we move to the last block of 3 presenters that are actually the groups what we do it for, I would stimulate the ones, the 5 that have spoken now, to really make use of this offer or of this opportunity to form this e-infrastructure. Well, it was called Umbrella Forum, but now we have, I think, called it Assembly, isn't it? So Assembly is the name that we are going to use. So please organize yourselves into and represent yourselves in e-IRG through this e-infrastructure assembly. And with that, I would like to move to the last block. And really, I don't want to hurry up. I was forbidden to hurry up, but I think we should hurry up a bit. We have 2 minutes left. Well, that's not fair. I think we should try to do this in really 10 minutes and not more. I'm sorry for the ones that have been waiting so long, Andreas, Brecht, and Denis. I hope you are ready. The first one is Andreas Petzold. Are you there? Oh, sorry, you're here. I'm sorry. I'm so talking to the remote people that I didn't pay attention. Sorry. Here you are.
So my name is Andreas Petzold. I'm from Research Center Jülich, and I'm here on behalf of the S3 Science Cluster. So my job in the last 4.5 years was to coordinate the NRE Science Cluster. And it's my pleasure to convey to you the congratulations from all the 5 science clusters to your 20th anniversary. And we thought a good present would be this view from the science clusters to what we see, how we see EOSC. That was created in 2020, so some years ago when the whole process started somehow. And we were discussing, what do we expect from EOSC? What is EOSC for us? And you see here what we brought up at that time, and we met yesterday at the final concluding event for NRE, because NRE comes to an end by the end of the month, together with Niklas Blomberg from EOSC Live, and we thought this is still valid. You can download it if you wish from Zenodo, so we make it available to everybody. I mean, the vision is that the e-infrastructures form the fundamental basis for the open science community in Europe by providing all the resources needed to enable us as scientists to access data storage and computational services, so that we don't have to do it by ourselves via a European-wide IT federation. And it started with separate infrastructures, and we hope to see a further consolidation because that's essential for us. We want to focus on science, on the provision of data and research products to the scientific communities, but not only, also to users like the Copernicus Earth Observation System or citizen scientists, so all that part. And for that, we need support in the IT background because that's not our expertise. Our expertise is the science behind. So with that foundation or the consolidated basis, we can start driving towards the transition to open science by offering open data and using open standards and open literature to bring that benefits to the European researchers, but not only. So for me, as being in charge for the IAGOS research infrastructure, that is just to give you an idea of what we are doing. It's a small, nice little infrastructure flying instruments on passenger aircraft where we collect worldwide data on the state of the climate. And we make it accessible to everybody worldwide. That means we live open science since we started in 1994. And open science is in the genes of almost all of the e-infrastructures, of the environmental infrastructures and others. So we are really building on the foundations by the e-infrastructures to live open science, and then we can do our job to bring the content from the scientific communities to the EOSC and beyond. And this, we can call it Trinity. That is something which can really form a strong basis for the future. There is one but I have to make on behalf of all of the science clusters. We are now coming to an end or have already finished up. We now prepare for the future with having identified further development parts where we will look for closer collaborations with the infrastructures in various fields. To do so, we must be sure that whatever services we incorporate in our operations, that they are sustainable, because we have to be sustainable. That's what we are paid for. And the provision of our services must also be built on a sustainable basis. So that is the big thing that we need to be assured that whatever we incorporate will stay. I'm pretty confident that we are going together this road, and we have developed really good collaborations with e-infrastructures on various levels. In that sense, I think we will form a strong community walking further down the road and, yes, looking into a bright future. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. and also for your patience and for making this a very concise statement. Thank you very much. Now, I think we have two presenters remotely left. Brecht, are you there?
I'm here.
Ah, very good. Also, you, thank you for your patience.
No worries.
We're going to bring you onto the screen. There you are. And I hope you succeed in, if you have a presentation, to share it.
I don't have any slides right now.
Okay, well, go ahead then.
I'll be brief in my comments.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, thank you. And thank you for inviting us. I'm Brecht Zahnen. I'm Senior Policy Officer at Science Europe, working on open science. I'm filling in for my Secretary General, Lydia Borrell-Damian, and my colleague, James Morris, who is working more actively on research infrastructures. But we felt it was important we still accept your invitation and make a few comments on our work on research infrastructures. And in any case, we're not one to miss a birthday party. So again, congratulations. So Science Europe, for those who are less aware, we are a representative organization. We represent public research funding and performing organizations across Europe. And that means we represent 41 of our member organizations across 30 European countries. And as such, we represent organizations that play a key role in shaping the research and innovation landscape in Europe, but also increasingly global. Don't forget that many of these discussions are clearly global discussions. And I feel that discussions in Europe are waking up to the idea that Europe does have quite a few things to contribute to those global discussions, even though other world regions have different situations, different challenges, and even different opportunities. Europe can provide inspiration to those global discussions. Now, briefly in my comments, I think a lot of material, a lot of ground's already been covered by my fellow speakers, but I do want to approach this from the open science perspective very briefly, and then also give you a few ideas on how my organization has been working on research infrastructures as part of the work on open science. Now, open science, to start there, obviously a strategic priority, both for my organization, Science Europe as a whole, but also for many, if not most, or all of our member organizations. The reason why, the question why often comes up, and it's very elementary at its very basis. You there have, from a scientific perspective, you just have that the great value of scientific knowledge is that this is tested knowledge upon which new knowledge can be built, expanded, and iterated. And open science, in our mind, just reinforces that dynamic. Open science as such is just science done well, reinforcing the basic dynamics at the heart of it. Open science, then, for us, how we approach it, we have two key objectives there. The first one being, we want to see more and more. We are seeing more and more, but we have further to go. One objective is seamless collaboration within the research community. Between all research communities, we want to see seamless collaboration. There should be no barriers between researchers and between teams as they produce and pursue scholarly knowledge. That's one big objective. And I think you can already see where this is headed in terms of research infrastructures as well. The second big objective that I do want to point out, it's overlooked at times, but it's an objective we've been very explicit on, is we have the objective under open science of meaningful involvement of societal actors. For us, that is saying that science should not stop at the edges of research communities. We do have the objective of having meaningful involvement of societal actors. Those are our two big objectives when we talk about open science. I would also point out that underneath those objectives, we have a very strong element of equity that we've been very explicit on. Equity in this meaning that if we want to have seamless collaboration between research communities, we want that to include all research communities in whatever context, financially, capacity that they are working. And we also want to include meaningfully all segments of society. One more thing I want to point out, and I realize I'm rushing through this, but I think we're getting to the end of the meeting, so I will sort of hurry up a little bit with my comments. But one more thing on open science is that we very much support the public ownership of publicly funded research and its results. I think many of you have had an opportunity by now to look at the Council of the European Union's conclusions on scholarly publishing that were published or adopted last month in May. And they provide political support for this as well. And this really extends to research infrastructures. We obviously represent public funding bodies and public research performing organizations, but we feel it makes a lot of sense that publicly funded research is in public ownership. That doesn't mean that commercial actors do not have a role to play. They can obviously be service providers, but since it's publicly funded, the public should decide, the public body should decide on which terms that material is produced and is disseminated and used in the end. Those are a couple of comments, just where we're coming from, to give you some context on our work on open science, how we approach this work, and then to give you a couple of ideas on research infrastructures and our recent work there. Obviously, research infrastructures are a vital part both at the European level and the global level, even at the national level, in everything that I've just mentioned. So we could not pursue any of this without robust research infrastructures. Science Europe, its more recent activities there on this topic have centered on themes of optimizing both the use, the management, and the funding of research infrastructures for the benefit of all. Again, you see an equity element there. Science Europe, obviously, it's in the name, Europe. We look at the European level, but I do also have to point out that we emphasize the role and importance of national research infrastructures. Those should obviously not be forgotten, as, for example, for an organization like us that's focused very heavily on the European level. Optimizing the use of research infrastructures, I've mentioned it before. For us, that really means that new and innovative ways to provide access to the services, resources, and facilities that they offer should be considered. I think many of them have been mentioned, but obviously these include virtual access, secondary use, clustered access, etc. Those are things that we're very interested in seeing and exploring further. And it's not enough to just have those on offer and promote them. We also feel that very obviously research funders and performers have a role to play in providing appropriate training services and training tools wherever necessary to have a more in-depth development of these issues, of these ways of working with research infrastructures. You are going to have to pay attention to training very carefully. Very briefly, coming back to open science, Science Europe does, in its work on research infrastructures, highlight the importance of open science practices being embedded across all the activities and outputs that arise from research infrastructures. Obviously, that means that we support the development of research data management plans by users, or even research software management plans. We are very heavily involved in promoting the FAIR principles, which we feel are essential to all of this work. But again, even though we promote all of this and we're very clear on the benefits and value of these RDMs and the FAIR principles and all that, again, we do acknowledge that support and training is needed there. So again, on behalf of my members, funders, and performers, do or have awareness of this and are taking actively a role in this. Finally, to conclude, I just wanted to point out that we are also very aware with research infrastructures of the role that networking and clustering of research infrastructure access and services can play in fostering multi, inter, and transdisciplinary and effective support for the research community across all domains, across all disciplines. With that being said, that's where I'm going to leave my comments, and I will stick around a little bit longer, of course, should there be any questions. Thank you.
Especially the plea for the public good is appealing. And wait, maybe you should consider transforming your name to Open Science Europe.
I will take that to my Secretary General.
You're then the last presenter, contributor, and yet again, thank you for your patience, Dennis O'Hara, on behalf of the EOSC Future User Group.
Thank you very much.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and happy birthday to e-IRG. I'd like to be there with you, but I'm from here in sunny Galway, as you know, which it's always sunny here in Galway if any of you have ever visited. I'm going to speak from a user perspective. So I'm the very, very far end user, and I was really impressed to see very much my values align with those expressed by Brecht there in the previous presentation, which is great to see Science Europe speaking in those in that way. I'm part of the EOSC Future User Group, and I'm also an ambassador for the Center for Open Science and a catalyst on behalf of the Berkeley Initiative for Transparency in Social Sciences. But today I'm speaking as a user, and I'm not speaking on behalf of any of those groups, just to make that clear. So with the idea of being a user and from my background in consumer psychology, I wanted to begin by, in a sense, characterizing myself as a user. So you've got an idea of me as a persona. So how am I going to try and achieve my objectives that are that involve e-infrastructure? So we have an idea here. I'm Dennis. I don't have time for this, but I want to help. My profile is I'm Irish, I'm dad with kids, kind of Gen X. I'm a senior academic, working in university in human sciences, psychology. I'm time poor, engaged in a lot of teamwork with low support. I code in R and Python. And then I'm an OS advocate, an early tech adopter, believe free is the best price, don't we all? And then I'm very interested in impact. I want my work to get out, not just to the research community, I want to impact policymakers and the community. And so then with that in mind, with that background, my infrastructure goals tend to be around sharing and promoting my research products and finding useful data, finding useful research products out there. OS processes, I want to share my open science processes. I want to leverage and outsource processes. So if there's a way in which I can work with processes that are being provided elsewhere, how do I easily do so? I want to enable collaboration. I want to work easily with remote labs and researchers. Again, much of this you'll hear is echoing what Brecht has previously said. And I want to empower my students. I want to give my students an edge by enabling them to work in this new open science world, really understanding the tools and understanding how to work best with these e-infrastructure goals. And then, so then we think of some scenarios. So a tricky situation we often come up with is sharing data from our project. How is it that we store data? How do we protect our participants? How do we make data accessible? Know what a DMP is. What does that acronym mean? And if I don't know by this evening, forget it. You know, we've got to move on. We don't have the time. We're working in this very, very, very just time poor environment. And so with that in mind, my current e-service usage would relate primarily to Open Science Framework, which we use for flexible, citable outputs, recipes for pre-recitations and other use cases, for example, DMP. And also OpenAir provides some very useful tools in DMP, which I'm just getting to grips with. I use GitHub, I use Google Docs, and I use OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive for many of my research processes. Now you'll notice that of those, most of those are actually not, you know, kind of open source, the European open source cloud. So there's, when competing for end users like myself, the European open source cloud is in a very competitive marketplace. So I'm particularly looking at EOSC Future and part of that user group. It has massive potential. The amount of assets and different providers that have been brought together through EOSC is simply breathtaking. And yet the means for someone like myself to access that, it needs work. It needs to be an easier way in for the various user types, more obvious payoffs. How do I obviously serve my goals? And then I'm time poor, so is it very clear that this will pay off for me? So what do I see as the challenges? Well, senior academics like us, we've little time, we've established habits, some of them good, some of them bad, don't like to look bad, like to look like we don't know what's going on, and we're hard to reward because again, it's when you're talking about recognition, often senior academics, it's hard to hit that. Often with senior academics, my own reward tends to come from rewarding my students, enabling my students, and increasing my impact through my students. Also, for science with humans, we need support for ethics and data management to make that process that recognizes and protects our participants. We need ways in which that is easily compatible with effective data sharing and working. I think that's somewhere, particularly in Europe, we are very sensitive to privacy, very sensitive to protections, which I think is great. And we can get ahead by making these effective pipelines more visible and easier for end users like myself to use. So really, to my mind, this is about winning the workflow today, and that does come down to getting them while they're young. I incorporate e-infrastructure training into undergraduate research. So we currently use Open Science Framework for an undergraduate research program we have called Vertically Integrated Projects. We do that at Galway. And so the students learn to use open source and open science tools as part of their process of work. And they learn that ever before they start to make products public, we want to make sure that they're comfortable with the product. And then so Microsoft and Google are in the workflow already, and it is very hard to compete with them. And you can see in Microsoft's work currently, they're working to bundle more and more services into the Microsoft 365 offering to make it harder to leave that environment, because so much of it is within that environment. Again, so it's hard to compete with such bundling. We're also incorporating e-infrastructure training into doctoral training and training in OSF as part of our library training at Galway in particular. So I'm doing that again in my role as ambassador for the Center for Open Science. But these are ways in which I think EOSC and in general, to tap into end users, I think we need to start really getting to end users before they become end users. And that sounds counterintuitive, but we need to get to students before they become the researchers of tomorrow, and we need them to be comfortable with the material. Okay, so with that, I will just say thank you very much. This talk is available on the Open Science Framework at the URL provided there, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Now, in view of time, and I'm looking at the chairperson, we're rounding this off, right? Because I think we are now dangerously close to hitting our schedule. So I would like to thank, if there are still remote participants, thank you for your presence and for your attendance and your contributions, also from the people in this room. Obviously, we have invited so many persons to our birthday party that it just couldn't be squeezed into this session. I'm sorry for that, but I enjoyed it very much. I hope that you did too. And I give the word to you for the logistics. Okay, thank you.
Well, we will have lunch. It's a plated lunch, so it will probably be pretty quick. It is served in the same restaurant as the dinner yesterday. So those of you that were there, just go that way and the others will sort of follow automatically. The buses will leave at 1:30. So in 35 minutes. And we will have a visit in this with this research infrastructures jointly with other groups. So we cannot be late. So we really have to leave. And also the bus is leaving from the hotel entrance. So you go that way and you will find the bus there. So, and yeah, an ID you need to have with you. That is clear.
Also, no skirts, no shorts, no skirts, only trousers are allowed in ESS. This is what we heard. So,
So lunch. Thank you.